Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here. Hope you're well. You find me today in the environs of Bury St Edmunds because I've popped down to Krazy Horse Customs, my favourite custom shop in the country, to borrow another Indian motorcycle. Today I'm riding the Chief Dark Horse, a big bruising cruiser bike. It's a beautiful day. Stick around, stay tuned. I'll tell you what I think of it. Alright, so before we get too carried away with the riding then, let's take a closer look at the Indian Chief Dark Horse, shall we? Just have a look at what this bike looks like. Alrighty, first off, and the thing that is the big deal about this bike, as far as I'm concerned, is this engine. They call it the Thunderstroke. It's an absolutely amazing looking piece of kit, properly air-cooled. I just love the way that looks, and is obviously a characteristic V-twin, which is, it's got to be a V-twin, doesn't it, on a big American bike of this type. Absolutely beautiful. Fit and finish on this is lovely. I love the way they've got this sort of raised lettering on the tank. This one's got this sort of matte green finish as well, which looks really nice. It's got a sort of a military type feel about it, if you like. I love the pipes on here. As you'll see when we ride it, they're not obnoxiously loud, which is great. Another great feature on here, which I think more bikes should do, belt drive as well. It kind of works with cruisers, but of course it means you don't get loads of maintenance issues, no oiling a chain to be done, so that's lovely. Unusually, actually, this is all completely standard, by the way. There are no optional extras on this, which is what I like about this. Is exactly as it comes out of the box, and it does come with the side mounted plate as standard, which I think looks pretty good on this one. Lovely LED lights all around as well. Big comfy seat, which we'll talk more about when we ride it, obviously. And then if we have a little look at the switch gear, I'll talk more about this when we ride it, but massive chunky levers on here. Clutch on here is quite stiff, but you know you're pulling a clutch. Similarly, obviously, with the mashing brake lever, nothing adjustable there, but nice and simple, no exposed wires, or very few. Just looks really neat and tidy there. And then we've got this pretty cool looking LED headlight on the front as well. All right, enough of what the bike looks like then. Let's ride her some more. All right, so welcome aboard the bike then. A really comfortable place to be. The first thing that struck me about the bike when I jumped on was that the seat really is very comfortable on here. The riding position, typical cruiser, but what I love about it are these mid-set pegs. For me, forward set pegs just don't work. Now with the Chief, actually, they come in various flavours, and if you want, you can have forward set pegs, or you can have footboards as well. You can get those fitted to this bike, but personally, I like the mid-set pegs. It just works for me. My feet aren't dangling around out the front trying to find where to put my feet all the time. In terms of the riding position, you're sat quite upright. Your legs, well, your knees actually are sort of above your hips actually. A little bit what I'd call the armchair position, I suppose. Nice wide bars, really comfy, and just perfect for lolloping along on these sort of lazy rides around the back lanes on a beautiful day like today. Handling on these roads is all right actually. Again, you've got to, approach these bikes with the intention that the designers intended of them, if you see what I mean, and that of course it's not a sports bike. It is the sort of bike that for me I would take out on a Sunday afternoon for a ride on roads like this, and for that purpose it's just absolutely lovely. This big engine just lazily thumping away, never under any stress. And in the case of the Indian, as in all Indians that I've ever ridden, it just feels nice and smooth as well, even though it's got this massive V-twin on it. Unlike some other American bikes that I could mention, you don't get that huge amount of rock and roll. You do get a bit of it, you do get that character, and that's partly what the appeal of these bikes is. But once you're rolling like this, look, I'm doing 50 miles an hour on a fairly bumpy road, but it's as smooth as you like. Something that I really like about this bike and makes it stand out from the crowd is the way that they've cleverly disguised the electronics. Now, I'm not a massive fan of electronics on bikes, as I've said often. I do like ABS and traction control, but that's about it. But on this bike, it does have lots of electronics, but it's done in a way that's very subtle, and I quite like that. And it's also very intuitive to use, unlike so many other manufacturers. So what do I mean by that? Well, check out this display that I'm looking at. It's a TFT display. It is touch sensitive. You can change it on the move. There's a couple of displays here. They show the same information, but there's two variants of them if you like. I like that one. But given it's a TFT, they've displayed everything in an old school way. So we've got a proper fuel gauge, proper speedo, RPM there, all on the same device. It looks like you'd expect an instrument on a bike like this to look. So it's modern, yet it's classic at the same time. That's the sort of gauge that I'd love to see Triumph put on things like their Rocket and so on, instead of what they do. So massive top marks to Indian for the way they've done that. And this thing has all the electronics you need as well. It's got one of those clever things where you can hook it up to your phone for listening to your music and so on, and you can control all that, not only touch sensitive through the main display here, but you can also do it through the buttons on the handlebars as well, so it's less faffing about, you know, taking your hands off the bars and so on, which is all nicely done. And it's very intuitive to use as well. As I say, I'm generally not a fan of electronics on bikes, but the way they've done this, just implemented beautifully. The sat-nav on here, for example, is a fully featured sat-nav, but it doesn't rely on it hooking up to your phone. It's got proper, it's not just an arrow, it's got proper maps on here, and I'll be using it later to get my way back to Krazy Horse, because I haven't got a clue where I am now. So yeah, the electronics on here, it's done really nicely. Busy out here today, what is going on? The suspension on here, nice and soft as you'd expect. The ride really is nice. Little short mirrors on here that look great. Little bit of vibration in them, but I can see okay out the back. And talking about vibration generally, there are some vibes through the seat, although, as I said before, it's pretty smooth as this sort of bike go. It does have a few vibes, but they're not the sort that would be distracting and would annoy you. It just reminds you that you're on a big American V-twin, and I love that. The gearbox on here is really a lot smoother than you'd think. Of course, it doesn't have quick shifters and things like that. You have to use the clutch, which is quite heavy, but you definitely know you've engaged it. I've not had any false neutrals. The gearbox just seems really, really nice. Right, before we talk more about the ride, let's hop off and just go through the specification. Alright, let's talk specs then on the Indian Chief Dark Horse, shall we? As ever, I've written them down so I don't make any errors for you. Let's start off with this incredible looking engine that I've already said I love the look of. They call this the Thunderstroke 116. That's because it's got 116 cubic inches. Now, when I googled it, that means it's around about 1900cc or 1800 and something, whatever. It's big. So, incredible lumpness. Don't know what the horsepower is, couldn't find that out, but it does put out 162 Newton meters of torque, or 120 foot-pounds if you're old school, at 2,900 RPM. So low and thumpy. It's all about the low down grunt on this bike. Absolutely cracking engine there. While I'm down the front here, the brakes look unusually, perhaps for a bike of this weight, it's only got a single disc, although I didn't find it a problem. The stoppers work absolutely fine. The disc on here is badged Indian. It's a 4-pot caliper, and this front disc is 300mm. At the back we've got I think it's a 200, no, it's another 300mm, sorry, and this has got a, looks like a 2-pot caliper on there as well, but the brakes work absolutely fine. Suspension, nothing particularly special except that they are massively chunky forks, as you can see. 46mm telescopic forks here, right way up ones unusually, and these have got 132mm of travel, so quite a lot of travel on there. On the rear we've got this double spring setup. Again, nothing, well, they're adjustable for preload, but that's basically it. These have got 75mm of travel, so not an awful lot of travel on the back suspension, but it does have a plush ride. Seat height on here is one of the lowest bikes I've ever ridden, actually. The seat height on here is 662mm, so you can easily get your feet on the deck, and I have a bend in my leg as well, so it makes it nice and easy to handle the big weight on this, which is 304 kilograms if it's fully fueled, 294 if it's empty, but it's still basically a 300 kilogram bike, so it is heavy, but at no point did I notice that being an issue on here, thanks to that low seat height. Tank capacity on here, 15 litres. Lovely looking tank on here. I love the details they've done here. I like the fact you've got the side mounted fuel cap, and I love the little Indian logo on here, and just the fit and finish on the bike generally is beautiful. Electronics wise, we haven't talked too much about them other than the fact that I like the way they've integrated them. It has got ABS, it's got keyless riding, it's got that rear cylinder deactivation. The touch screen on here is actually a 4-inch touch screen. It's got something called Ride Command. You can bring it to life, I think, with that button there, and it takes a little while to warm up. That's something actually that I don't like so much about it. It takes a little while before you can actually get to grips with the bike. If you're going to use it as a getaway machine, you need to have the engine running to start with. At least that's what the salesman told me. It's got something on here called Ride Command, so you can connect it to your phone if you can be bothered, and that way you can get live weather, live traffic updates, all that sort of thing, but I think you do need to subscribe to that. So you can do all that Bluetooth connectivity as well if you want to for music. I don't bother with all that, but the sat nav on here, as I say, is native, so you don't have to worry about that. It's all good. Also has a USB charging port, although I have to confess I'm not sure where that is. It may well be under the seat, and it does have LED lighting all round, so all the mod cons that you can possibly want. Price wise, this bike starts at $16,195, and I think you're getting quite a lot of bike for that money. So welcome back aboard. I find myself stuck in a traffic jam for some reason, but we've got some twisty roads ahead, it says here, so hopefully we can explore the envelope a little bit more on the Indian. It's a very civilised place to be, I must say. We talked a bit before about the display on here and the electronics and how well that's done. What about the switch gear? Well, it's lovely and positive on here, unlike anything else that I've come across before. It's actually got an on-off switch like you'd have on a computer, which I find quite amusing for some reason, I don't know why. And then it's got the start button on the right there. Is a bit like Suzuki do, where you just have to touch it once and the bike starts up. You don't have to hold on to it. And it's also got cruise control, annoyingly, on the right handlebar. That's something I don't like about the bike. What is it with bike manufacturers that put the cruise control on the right, which means when you're trying to set it, you've got to hold the throttle exactly in the right spot to do it. Doesn't quite work for me. That makes more sense for me if the cruise control is on the other side. On this bike, on the other handlebar, you've got your lights and horn in the pretty much usual places. Indicators on here, which are self-cancelling. And you've got controls as well to go through the various functions on the TFT if you want to, including some buttons behind the left and right handlebars as well that control some of that, or you can do it all on the screen. I personally find doing it on the screen perfectly alright. The motor on here is just amazing. It's all about the torque on these bikes. In fact, I don't even know what the horsepower is on here, as I mentioned. It's probably not a high figure, but in any gear it's just got loads of shove. I just need to get out of the way of this traffic so I can explore that a bit more. Right, one thing I've been told I absolutely must try on this bike is its sports mode. Now, you don't necessarily expect bikes like this to have riding modes, do you? But this one has 3, including a sports mode. So let's see if I can get it into that on the fly. Settings. Alright, so the 3 modes on this are Tour, Standard and Sport. I've been riding it in Sport. Just wondering what the best road to try this out on is. Let's go straight on. It looks like a straight one up there. Let's go to Sport mode. There you go. Right, we're in Sport mode now. We've got a bit of a straight rate. Already I can feel the throttle is much more lively. Holy cow! Woo! Yep. Wow, yeah, that is quite something. I didn't speak then because the thing was frankly just too horrifically fast. Incredible. Wow, that is quite something. There's so many bikes that I ride that have riding modes on that you change mode and it makes very little difference. Well, this isn't one of those bikes. Look how much you can lean this over as well. Not scraping the pegs. You really can tip it over in the corners. Try not to scrape my 360 camera. Yeah, that sport mode is something else. Definitely worth trying that out if you get a go on one of these. So this bike manages to me to do that rare thing, a combination of old school charm, all the character that you like about these sort of bikes, plus high tech as well. Not only does it have those electronics that it's done so well, but also the engine is high tech as well, and that it's got this clever thing that when you come to a stop at a junction or whatever, it cuts off the front cylinder, or rather the rear cylinder, and just runs on the front cylinder only. Just means the engine doesn't get quite so hot. Very clever stuff. Sorry car drivers, but we're waiting there all day for those guys to overtake. Right, and then straight into a 30 again. Bother! What a cracking part of the world this is. I think technically I'm in Suffolk, a county that I really don't know too much about, which isn't surprising because I regard myself as a Norfolk lad, and well, there's a little bit of rivalry between Norfolk and Suffolk, to be honest, but now I'm a grown up I can get past that, and actually I think I'll probably prefer Suffolk. There's some beautiful villages and things around here, and the roads are pretty good as well. Now I'm recording this video on a Friday lunchtime, possibly the worst time to come out on a bike because it does mean there's traffic around. It's the usual scourge of the southeast of England. The time to ride this bike would be early on a Sunday. And the good news about that is this pipe on here, which is the standard pipe on this one, it's not obnoxiously loud. It's just got a nice note about it, so you wouldn't wake up your neighbours on a Sunday morning and annoy them. I'm hoping the mic in the helmet just picks up the noise of this okay. It's got a nice rumble about it, but it's not ridiculously loud. Oh, here we experience the torque. Yeah, so once you wind her up a bit, which it does with great ease, very easily, if that makes sense, you know what I mean, then you do start to get the full force of the wind on your torso, it being a naked bike of course. So you do have to hang on. It's one of those bikes that feels like it wants to rip your arms off. But at the end of the day, I would suggest you're not going to be cruising around at super high speeds on these bikes too much, but you can do it if you want to. So if you're going on holiday and hitting some motorways, you can cruise along and you'll be fine. The air hitting me is not particularly turbulent. Nice and smooth. And the view out the front here with these low handlebars is great. What a great road this is. Perfect for this bike. Yeah, this is definitely one of those bikes that puts a smile on your face, and that has got to be the most important thing about a motorcycle, isn't it? So there, what's my summary? What are my likes and dislikes then on the Big Indian? Well, it's really not much to not like about it. I mean, if you don't like cruiser bikes, then you won't like this, but if you do like cruiser bikes, I suggest you're going to love this. The things I particularly love about it are this engine, which, as I say, is oh so smooth. I love its air-cooled character. It's just got the right amount of rumbliness to give you a grin, but not so much that it becomes annoying. I love the engine, I love the comfort about it, I love the fact that the pegs are mid-set and not forward-set. The bike is built beautifully, the fit and finish on it is lovely. I like the fact that it's a bit different as well. If I had room in my garage, I'd definitely have an Indian, and it might be one of these. You just don't see that many of them on the road. And I love the fact that it's something a little bit different, some proper Americana as well. In terms of dislikes, really nothing at all major. The only minor gripe is that positioning of the cruise control, but that's just, as I say, that is a minor gripe. That's nothing at all really. Actually, I've just thought of something else actually that I'm not so keen on the bike, or something that I've learnt about even on this short ride, is this pipe here gets very hot. Now, it's obviously that your pipes get hot, and your legs are quite wide on this bike, but occasionally if you touch that through my biking jeans, you can get a bit of a hot leg. So minor point, it hasn't that much, but worth mentioning. Other than that, I'm kind of struggling for things I don't like on the bike. Oh, I suppose if I'm being picky, that startup time on here, the fact that it does take a little while for all the TFT to go through its computer shenanigans before you pull away. You probably can ride away before it's all kicked off, but it just takes a little while to bring that all to life. So if you're in a hurry, that could be a bit of a problem, but again, minor point, I'm really clutching at straws. Alright, still racking my brains about dislikes. Another one, if I'm being picky, perhaps that front brake could be a little bit more effective. You do have to give it quite a shove to get the bike to stop. It could definitely benefit from dual discs or maybe a bigger disc. But again, with the general sort of riding that you're doing on this bike, you're not going at super high speeds. It's perfectly adequate. But I'm just used to front brakes that are a bit more effective feeling than that one is. Okay, I've only ridden the bike for this short ride. I've not had it for a couple of weeks or anything like that, but based on this first ride, really nice bike. And actually in a bit of traffic, which is not too bad. You could commute on this fine. It's got this really low seat, so look, my legs are bent when they're down the deck, properly flat footed, so even though it's a heavy bike, the weight just isn't an issue. At no point riding this have I thought about the weight of this bike, which is something else I like about it. Weight often puts people off bikes, doesn't it? And I understand why, but in this case you don't need to worry about that. It's so low, it's just not an issue. Just racking my brains trying to think if there's anything else about this bike that I don't like, but I'm really struggling. It's a cracking cruiser, it really is. If I had room in my garage, I think I'd probably add this. I like it a lot. Oh, that's where the grin factor comes in again. Fantastic. Alrighty, so I must say a huge thank you to Krazy Horse at Bury St Edmunds for letting me ride the bike. You can do so too. This is their demo machine. Give them a call if you fancy a go, and get yourself down here on a sunny day like this and enjoy some of these roads. It's absolutely cracking. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the review. If you've not done so already, do hit the subscribe button. I look forward to speaking to you on the next video. Until then, this has been the Mist and Fly. Cheerio. Woohoo!